Hello and welcome to Game Changer. I'm Mariam Zia. Tonight we will be discussing about Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Senator Mohammad Ishaq Dar's visit to Beijing from 19 to 21st May. This is the first visit post, of course, we know India-Pakistan ceasefire. During his stay, Mr. Dar will be holding meetings with prominent Chinese officials on different issues that includes of course, Pakistan-China relations, as well as CPEC and the evolving security situation in the region. But the most significant part of this visit is a trilateral dialogue between Pakistan, China and Afghanistan. For this dialogue, we know that Mr. Amir Khan Muttaqi, who is, of course, interim foreign minister of Afghanistan, will also be attending the dialogue. In today's program, we will be discussing how these three countries will be sitting together to discuss issues that are concerning this region. And of course, these issues involve regional peace, security, trade, counterterrorism, and connectivity across the borders. We know that this will be the sixth round of talks between these three countries. Could this trilateral dialogue be a game changer for peace and security for the region? We'll be discussing in today's program. To discuss this and more, we have a very prominent panel of guests today joining in the studios. We are joined by former Ambassador Mr. Ali Sarwar Naqvi. Welcome to the program. We are also joined by Ms. Salma Malik, who is IR expert. Welcome to the program. And we're also joined by Barrister Safiur Laghori, who is a political analyst. Welcome to the program. Mr. Naqvi, let me start with you. When we look at the timing of this visit, in your opinion, how crucial is it? Keeping in mind the context that, of course, Senator Ishaq Dar, who is Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Pakistan, has had, of course, two telephonic conversations during whole Pakistan-India saga post-Pahalgam, and now this is his first official visit to China. How significant and crucial is the timing?
I think the timing is very crucial, very apt, very appropriate at this occasion, on this occasion, and for a variety of reasons. First, the China-Pakistan Afghanistan Trilateral Dialogue or Trilateral Forum has been meeting from time to time and to discuss regional stability, trade, cross-border terrorism, and a whole lot of related issues like the development of Afghanistan, China's role in that exercise or that project. And then there is another part to this visit, I think, that Foreign Minister, Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar is likely to talk about bilateral matters with his Chinese counterparts. So he will make use of this visit for achieving both objectives. In regard to the Pakistan, China, Afghanistan dialogue, I think there is a lot of discussion that needs to be done because with Afghanistan, Pakistan has had an uneasy relationship. We have not yet recognized Afghanistan, even though...
And the world has not recognized.
And the world, the rest of the region and the world as a whole, which I think is a good thing, because the recognition should come after the regional countries are more or less satisfied with what the Afghan government wants to do. Because the major problem is that Doha agreement has not been implemented as it should have been.
Of course, that remains an important point, and I want to come back to you regarding the trilateral dialogue. But first, I want to touch upon a little on, of course, bilateral relations between Pakistan and China. Of course, both countries are all-weather friends. But how crucial was China's role in this, of course, whole saga leading to ceasefire between Pakistan and India, which in fact we know that ceasefire still remains very fragile. And now Mr. Dar is visiting on the invitation of Mr. Wang Yi. What's your take on this, especially when we talk about defense cooperation between both the countries, and how this is going to be increasing in coming days, in your opinion?
Thank you so much. This visit is very significant. One point that many of us have been hammering since the Pahalgam incident, false flag operation, has been that Pakistan has to enter into very vigorous, aggressive diplomatic ventures and be very assertive and place their voice on international fora. China has always been the cornerstone of Pakistan's foreign policy virtues. The Beijing mission means a lot to us. Our relations with China mean a lot. All those terminologies that we have always associated with Beijing, deeper than the ocean, higher than the mountains, all-weather friendship, all of these things aside, China at a very practical level is also one of our biggest trading partners. It is also one of our biggest defense vendors. Pakistan has entered into several ventures with China, and the result was very visible in the May imposed war on us, where Pakistan retaliated with full force, and the JF-17s and the J-10Cs, which were weapon systems, especially the J-10C was a weapon system which was more or less incorporated around the same timelines when the Indian Rafales were introduced into the system. So it was a new system, and yet our pilots' performance and resilience proved that it was a system that could exceed any type of challenges that was put their way. The missiles that we used, many of them are a product of joint ventures, transfer technology. So we have a lot of defense infrastructure which is co-shared with China, and we have done a lot of groundwork on that.
And how do you see
really
that
matters.
this interoperability of militaries between both the countries, especially during this time?
Absolutely. You see, the situation here was that where at one level there was an India-Pakistan war taking place, at another level certain people were looking at this war from a very different angle, where they were saying that the military-industrial complexes of the Asian giant is at odds or at war with the Europeans, and Pakistani pilots' performance, and that is where the mating takes place. The platforms which are a joint venture, and then our pilots who have been trained by the PAF, in the PAF, and they have done all their what should we say, adaptability on these new weapon systems, and they performed without any flaw. It was a flawless performance, and not only flawless performance, they outdid what were expected from them. So that kind of shows that there is a very, very strong matching when it comes to the man and machine ratio, one aspect. The second aspect is that there's a lot of adaptability when it comes to these weapon systems. So this European versus, or the Western versus the Chinese weapon system was also another cause of concern for the international military analysts, and there has been a lot of loud talk regarding that. Then the stock markets would show the trends of Rafale unfortunately going down, and the Chinese Chengdu air industries going up. So all of these things kind of show you where these things are happening. And one very important point that one needs to look at from this particular angle is that there has been, before May 6, 2025, China being looked upon as a major, a great power, a major power, great power, but something that countries, especially the Western capitals, would shy away from calling a superpower. They would say that China has the economics, China has everything, it's a soft, strong soft power. It doesn't have the military teeth. But I think the May war proved that China has arrived comprehensively as a superpower,
Right,
and they can
and
really do that.
that raises a lot of concerns in the West and the European countries. But like Dr. Salma alluded to Operation Bunyanul Marsus, and we discussed in one of our shows earlier with you, Safi, about that. But I want to come to the point of Indus Water Treaty that India suspended. But now China announcing that it is going to be accelerating the progress on Mohammed Dam. How do you see this? Because it was slated for 2026, and now with acceleration of this, how do you see that India is going to be viewing it, and how much of a stability and support this is going to be providing to Pakistan?
Excellent question, Mariam, love it. So let's look at it from two ways. Firstly, China has given all-out support to Pakistan. If India decides that they are going to block Chinese waters, many voices within China have said that China should block Indian waters, and China has the wherewithal to do so. In fact, China is much more likely to block Indian waters than India is to block our waters, simply because
Brahmaputra.
Yes, from the Brahmaputra dams.
Yeah.
But apart from that, the fact that China is able to put up dams in 1 or 2 years, whereas the same dams would take India 15 years to build. So there's a big difference between the capabilities of both nations, and also just the topological standards in which the Himalayans are. Building a dam in the Himalayas where India stands, it's considerably more difficult than where China stands. So China knows this, and what India is doing is India is playing a very dangerous game of trying to firstly boast about starving and keeping 240 million people out of water, which is in itself a massive human rights abuse. But the fact that they are so boastful about it is giving Pakistan a completely new edge. And what we're seeing is a revolution taking place in international law, which is what my field is now. I tend to study it. Earlier, the Kashmir dispute was a dispute just of a freedom struggle, and we were constantly talking about the right of self-determination for the Kashmiris. Now it's no longer just that. Now it is an issue of water dependence. It is an issue of food dependence. It is an issue of climate change. All of these issues are issues that I hope that our foreign minister brings up in China, because China has been very supportive. What China has previously done for Pakistan when it comes to the Indus Water Treaty and also to the Kashmir dispute is constantly seen it as a freedom struggle. They have never categorized a legitimate freedom struggle as a terrorist organization, which is what India keeps trying to tell the world. And China has stood by Pakistan, Russia has stood by Pakistan. I honestly feel that for the first time, the tailwinds in our favor. But I want to add one thing here, which is something that, because I was listening to the discussion earlier, unfortunately, as always, us sending our foreign minister to China is not our proactive step. It is in fact a reaction to what India has done. India has sent 58 of their diplomats all over the world to different locations, to America, to Europe, to the Americas. I live in Brazil. Their diplomat is in Brazil right now. None of our diplomats are there. And what they're doing is they are constantly telling the world that they have a zero tolerance policy towards terrorism. They were the ones who put in their narrative first. Pakistan, as a reaction, has now sent to our diplomats to friendly countries. We have assembled a
not a reaction,
team.
but it was on invitation of China.
Yes.
But let me bring the same question to Mr. Naqvi. Mr. Naqvi, what's your take on this? With India's aggressive posture that Safi is referring to, what steps should Pakistan be taking at this point in time? And also, since we are discussing Mr. Dar's visit, what role do you think China can play in maintaining lasting truce between both India and Pakistan?
Yeah. Well, I will add one, before I address your question, one point about the Indus Basin Treaty.
Sure.
Now, the suspension of a treaty is not the right of only one party.
Yes.
Suspension cannot be done by one party without consulting the other party and without consulting the guarantor, which is the World Bank.
Yeah.
So, the World Bank has said as much, though they said they don't want to get involved with it, but they have said that suspension is not valid. And
unilateral suspension or abeyance
is virtually illegal.
Yeah.
So that needs to be highlighted. And as regards the Chinese role in the truce or the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, I think China is going to hopefully employ both political pressure as well as legal and moral pressure. Now, in political pressure, Chinese would bring in their role in dealing with the waters, because if China threatens or shows support for Pakistan, India is not likely to push ahead with its idea of suspension of the.
So Pakistan can in fact leverage its relations with China to, of course, held back the suspension of the treaty.
Yes, and then secondly, they will exercise their influence as a permanent member of the Security Council to ensure that the ceasefire holds and that there are talks between India and Pakistan, bilateral talks to solve some of the outstanding issues. So we should, I think when Mr. Dar is in Beijing, he should be talking to them to address this question as a member of the Security Council, where China has a great influence. So I think in both areas, it would be very useful for us to have Chinese support. And Dar is there to ensure that and to try and persuade the Chinese, who are very well disposed at the moment, and the fact that their aircraft and their advanced technology has had the upper hand in this.
Right, and now let's talk about the aggressive posturing of India and what should Pakistan be doing. And also I want to add another point to it, that of course when we talk about Quad, how do you think this is this Pakistan-India, Pakistan-China relation is going to be countering that? Do you think that Pakistan, China and Afghanistan can create another bloc?
Well, you see, Mariam, this is no longer an age of blocks. I personally feel that now it's all very fluid. China-Pakistan bilateral relationship is very important. But as regards getting Russia into it, Russia is also well disposed. We have to see, and we hope that there can be such a kind of concerted group that can work all together for peace and stability of this region. I mean, after all, we have the SCO forum as well, where Russia and China are both members, and they have inducted Pakistan as a member at a time when Pakistan was virtually in isolation, because in 2013, 14, 2015, there Pakistan was faced with a massive Indian campaign. And in that context, I'll add just one more sentence, that the Indian campaign and their sending of diplomats and envoys abroad is fine, but the Pakistani perspective needs to be conveyed to the countries that matter. I mean, we can go to all the Americas, to Peru and Paraguay and Uruguay, but that is not what we are aiming at. We believe in smart action, and that we have always done. You know, like with the Cold Start doctrine, we had the tactical nuclear weapons. So we can't deal with Cold Start as such, because India has a bigger army, but we have a smart solution. So I think Pakistan should be playing for smart solutions, if not necessarily quantitatively or proportionately the same as India's.
Can you give us 2-3 smart solutions that we should be adopting at this point in time?
Well, one would be that we are a member of the non-permanent member of the Security Council. This gives us a big advantage. We can move the Security Council. India is not at this moment. So we are at a advantage with in the international forum, and we can deal with the international community much more effectively by being a member of the Security Council. So the smart solution is that we leverage our position in the Security Council to address some of these regional problems as well as the broader problems. We can first get support for Gaza. I think we should do that from a moral point of view and from also a political point of view. Then we have to work out. You know, I mean, offhand, I can't rattle off 3 or 4 options as such, because we have to work out
Yeah, of course.
what we need to do. But we have to focus on being smart about it.
Right.
Not just addressing the questions as they come up.
Right, right. Dr. Salma, let's talk about this trilateral dialogue. We know that this is taking 2 years, this 6th round of dialogue between Pakistan, China and Afghanistan. What has changed since May 2023, in your opinion? Because as we know that in the last round of discussions, counterterrorism strategies were the main focus. But the terrorism emanating from Afghanistan still remain there, and India is supporting those proxies within Afghanistan.
You see, China's policy towards any of its neighboring countries, even including India, during the height of its crisis with India as well, and the 2 minor issues that we saw between India and China in the past, Doklam and Galwan issues, has been to keep engaged through trade. The prospect that President Donald Trump came up with, that I have asked them to trade, so if you trade then I trade, if you don't trade then I don't trade, kind of thing, that is something that he has taken out of the Chinese textbook. And China always believes in non-intervention, full cooperation, having good friendly relationship. So even during the coalition government's time frame, China was positively engaged in Afghanistan, and even after that China has been very, very positively engaged in Afghanistan in terms of its interest in the copper, iron core mines, etc., various other things. And of course for China, having terrorism is a major issue, because that thwarts its efforts, it retards its progress
Of course, in
in
CPEC
these
and
areas.
BRI.
But China does not take a very belligerent posturing or positioning. They believe in using a very soft strategy of convincing people, talking to them as equal partners, not pushing their weight down on these partners, and trying to find a way out. And I'm sure having, and Pakistan and Afghanistan, unfortunately, because we are just right next door to each other, we have sort of reached an impasse in the current months, which has resulted in a lot of negative sentiment between the 2 countries as well. How Pakistan is looking at terrorism emanating from Afghanistan. Afghanistan is not really adhering to what we are saying. They're not really sure of how we want to tackle it.
So
we want
what is going to be
partners in
changing
peace.
when we
I
talk
think
about this
when these
dialogue?
3 countries come together and they have a conversation, it will hammer this point home, or it will bring this point home as to how we can actually adopt a common policy when it comes to countering terrorism, having becoming partners in peace rather than becoming increasing animosity. Pakistan at this time does not really need more enemies, because India is a handful for Pakistan to handle, especially in India, which has been embarrassed, in India with a bloody
Right,
nose.
and talking about Indian factor and evolving security situation in the region post Pahalgam, we know that earlier Taliban government supported Indian government, but now there are reports emerging that they are ready for, like Taliban showed support for Pakistan for a neutral probe into Pahalgam incident.
Absolutely.
So do you think that this trilateral dialogue is going to be giving some kind of suggestions, and what should we be expecting as far as Indian proxies that are operating from Afghan soil are concerned?
Absolutely, because you see, in the thick of the war, there were also rumors of some missiles on the last day falling into the Afghan territory as well. So there needs to be more confirmation and coming from our official authorities. Madam, you see, the issue here is that when it comes to Afghanistan and Pakistan, there's more negative news that is shared amongst us in the media at large, and the conversations, the narrative is not very positive. Yes, a lot of disinformation, and most of this disinformation is also because India is spreading it so that Pakistan and Afghanistan don't see eye to eye. Now, if you look in the past, many of the wars that Pakistan has had with India, despite bad relations at times with Afghanistan, the Afghan authorities would actually tell Pakistan that you can even remove the last security guard manning the borders. We assure you that there is not going to be any incursion coming from our side. So you can fight with complete relaxation, focus on your enemy and do whatever you have to do. We don't talk about those positive stories. We are also buying into the negative propaganda that keeps on propping up. So I think we also need to go back on the scoreboard and strategize as to how we want to deal with our different neighbors differently. Afghanistan is our neighbor, Muslim brotherly neighbor country. It has been through very difficult phases. The dynamics are very complicated and complex. It's not so simple that you say this and it will happen
because a lot
overnight.
of people-to-people contact.
Absolutely. And then the dynamics of Afghan state is also not something which is a very regular dynamic. Yet the fact is that
Haqqani and Kandharis, anti-Pakistan and anti-India
having China coming in, China has actually offered in certain areas its good offices to mediate, although this is not a mediation thing, it's a trilateral dialogue. But the fact is that with China in the picture, all three countries would be able to align or realign their positions, look at different issues that they have, the different perspective that they have, the difficulties that they have, and that would also provide them to reboot and address those difficulties with a fresh mind. Pakistan needs to do that. Pakistan needs to have a very, very vibrant, happy, friendly, strong borders all along its flanks. And our western borders, especially with Iran, with Afghanistan, are most crucial because Afghanistan's security conditions remain fluid. India wants it to remain fluid. We kept on talking and hearing about 32 consulates and this and that. You don't need 32 consulates. You just need few people plugged into various strategic areas and they can destroy any country. Kulbhushan Yadav wasn't representing any
because this
consulate.
is a very
so India uses this space, this grey area to damage Pakistan. And we really need to have very strong relations with Afghanistan to absolutely strengthen our flanks.
Of course, that remains an important factor when we talk about this trilateral dialogue. But I want to discuss about the trade and connectivity because CPEC remains at the center stage when we talk about this trilateral dialogue. Although the security situation at this point in time is very fluid in the region, but at the same time, what are your expectations and also what challenges do you foresee in this trilateral dialogue when we talk about CPEC, connectivity, what projects and initiatives all three countries are going to be focusing on or should be focusing upon?
Right. So, Mariam, it's amazing that you brought up CPEC because if you think about it, if India says that they have been a victim of Pakistani terrorism, whatever false flag operations, Pahalgam, they lost 26 people. China has lost many more people than that within Pakistan through actual terrorism. Has China ever resorted to attacking Pakistan? China could also say that, oh, there are terrorist outfits in Pakistan, we want to go and take them out, we want to take actions against them. China has never done that because China is mature. China realizes that these terrorists are not homegrown.
And even Pakistan did not do that when Jaffa Express incident
but
happened.
leaving aside what Pakistan has done, I'm just talking about what a greater power would do, right? So China has never expressed even dismay towards Pakistan. Even there has never even been a thaw between the relationships between Pakistan and China. Why? And it's very important to understand that this is because China understands that these terrorists are not under the control, under the patronage of the Pakistani government. That these are independent, non-state actors that Pakistan cannot control, and what China needs to do is to strengthen Pakistan so that they can control these terrorists. It is not the other way around to attack Pakistani forces so that they become weaker and the terrorists become stronger, which is what India is doing. And this is the narrative that I think Ishaq Dar should be taking within China so that this is spread towards the Security Council so that the international community understands that Pakistan has already done more than enough to tackle terrorism. We have been on the FATF grey list. We have the best FMU right now, the financial monitoring unit in the world. We have actually trained the financial monitoring units of UAE and of Saudi Arabia and of Turkey, which were also on the grey list. Apart from that, we have our AML authorities, and apart from just the financial aspects of it, the kinetic operations that have taken place against terrorism. Pakistan remains to be the only country in the world that has actually defeated terrorist guerrilla organizations in Swat and in various other areas. China understands that, the USA understands that, and if we are going to be going now, what we need to now do, in my opinion, apart from obviously CPEC, which is China's vested interest, in my opinion, what we need to go and do now is to make India understand what the true definition of terrorism is, what comprises terrorism, and whether whether terrorism can be taken as an act of war. Because if, as you know, India in its recent meetings through the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval has downgraded the threshold of an act of war to an act of terrorism, which is the world's first. So that is very shocking, especially for two nuclear countries which have a history of throwing nuclear capable missiles at each other. Like we have actually had BrahMos coming from India, which is a nuclear capable missile. Now, given this scenario, China can play an extremely important role in
as a mediator and a guarantor.
As an advocate of Pakistan's perspective of what terrorism is, how much of a national responsibility lies on a state when an act of terrorism takes place. And now that Pakistan has established a moral high ground after the Pahalgam attack. Why the moral high ground? Because even today, India does not know who did the Pahalgam attack. They've waged a war against us, they attacked us, they killed our children, but to date the perpetrators of the Pahalgam attack are not caught.
Investigations are still on.
Investigations are still supposedly ongoing. We know that they have farcical and fictitious FIRs that have been filed. So this is Pakistan's turn to really push for a new agenda, a new legislation on what comprises terrorism and what comprises a false flag. Because
but coming back to the question of economics and trade and connectivity, when we talk about this trilateral dialogue, of course, there was mention of joint industrial parks, special economic zones, SME centers, support centers in Afghanistan. But how feasible are these? Because when the world has not recognized Afghanistan government, Taliban government.
I don't think the world's recognition matters, by the way. I think it's Chinese recognition that matters, because these are once again bilateral investments. China has been investing in Afghanistan. China is also looking to invest in Iran, which is one of the most sanctioned countries. China is trading with Russia, which is currently the world's most sanctioned country. China is not obviously looking at what the Western classifications of countries are. China is looking to expand its own interests. Now, the Belt and Road Initiative was offered to Afghanistan, and this is hopefully going to be one of the talks in which, you know, they would once again talk about how Afghanistan could become a part of the Belt and Road Initiative and benefit from the things that Pakistan is getting. As you mentioned very correctly, Pakistan, the CPEC 1 has now officially ended and CPEC 2 has begun, in which, you know, they are now going to bring in additional investments. We have several corridors, the Green Corridor, Health Corridor, Digital Corridor, new things that have been launched. And the Pakistani people, the Pakistani government are benefiting from this Chinese interest in Pakistan on a daily basis. Surely the Afghanis can be also sensitized as to how much their society can transform if they were to get into an economic block, a trade block.
Local communities needs to be engaged.
And if that
please
happens,
go ahead.
Sorry, Ms.
Please finish your sentence.
So the point here is that I personally really welcome the kind of changes that China has brought along. And also, the one thing, I keep going back to the issue of how we can redefine terrorism. It's very important to redefine terrorism at this stage, because when a terrorist incident like the Pahalgam attack took place, China offered to mediate, the UK offered to mediate, USA offered to mediate, every international, Iran, Saudi Arabia, so many mediators, India refused all of them, right? So if everybody is going to refuse mediations, then clearly we know that the definition of terrorism is incorrect. Either you set up a definition which can be defined by a neutral third-party mediator, or do not call it terrorism. And this is Pakistan and China's turn to really drive home the concept, because right now what India is doing is it's following the Israeli methodology of terrorism by putting complete culpability on the victim of whatever act of terrorism has taken place, without any proof, without any logic, and just call it a preemptive action. And Pakistan, on the other hand, has taken a very legalistic approach by using constant references to Article 51 of the United Nations, referring to the use of force, Article 1.2. The way we have gone about it has been very smart.
Of course,
I just hope that, I just hope this continues now.
Of course, that Pakistan has showed a lot of restraint, and Pakistan has also shown that Pakistan is no Gaza. Dr. Salma, please go ahead. You wanted to
thank you so much. I just wanted to add to a few points that Safi has said, and I think he's very right in saying it. There is kind of a confusion in Pakistan, although when it comes to Pakistan's relations with China, there is no confusion.
Of course.
There's crystal clarity how deep, how strong those relationships are. But from time to time, all these, and I guess that's also because the narrative becomes very strong and the voices become very loud as to are we really going in the right direction kind of an approach. But what we need to actually realize is that this is a very fascinating time of global transformation. The US century or the Western century, American century in transition, and the Asian century coming up. I'm also not saying that we just need to hedge with China alone or with the Asian countries alone. The US is a very, very important country, and it's going to remain a very important country. At this point, obviously, in terms of mediation, there was a lot of noise that why did not China mediate, or they did not have the right offices to mediate. China could not mediate. China is a party to the conflict. So how can you expect China to mediate between India and Pakistan? Because
And
China is a party.
It is the third nuclear power in the region.
It is the third nuclear power in the region. It has stakes in Kashmir. It has a bilateral issue with India. So there's so many things that go with that. But the point that I just wanted to say is, and I think we really need to talk about it more and more. We have won the battle. We have won the kinetic first round of the kinetic battle. Technically, even the kinetic battle, so long as India does not get rid of its defeatist mindset, is not done with. We are not, we have yet to win the war.
Right.
And the war
Like
can
I
only
earlier
be
mentioned
won
that
if we have aggressive
the ceasefire
diplomacy.
remains very fragile because of
Absolutely.
the sentiments
Absolutely.
and the Hindutva mindset of India. But coming back to the trilateral mechanism, Mr. Naqvi, this was established in 2017, 8 years on. How do you think this mechanism has evolved? Do you think it has achieved its objectives in terms of creating a regional framework, or it is kind of reactive in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a good question. You see, it has great potential. If China, Pakistan and Afghanistan can develop a common understanding of doing projects together, of developing many areas that could be used in the Belt and Road Initiative and in the CPEC forum. And if there could be better control of cross-border terrorism and stuff like that, then this would be a game changer, which is the theme of your discussion. And it could bring about a major change in the overall peace and stability of the region. Now, the point is that this trilateral forum has been going on for 8 years,
Yes.
which is important because the various elements of this discussion have always been addressed by the three countries involved. But there are many political, you see, we live in a very volatile region and so many things are happening. There was the China-India clash in Galwan. There was the Chinese build-up of troops deployment in that area. Then there is the perennial question of Kashmir, and then there is the overall situation of a kind of stability that needs to be, like India claims parts of Azad Kashmir. Now this is also something that would be of concern to China. So with Afghanistan is a new government which is addressing its problems, it's doing some things right, but there are other things that it has
A lot of political instability.
Yes, a lot of
as
political
well,
instability, lack of control of their territory, because the one reason why cross-border terrorism takes place is because Afghanistan cannot really control its frontier regions. So all this will be addressed by this forum and is being addressed, but results will take time. And I think this process should continue. And as I said, the potential of this entire
Right. And talking about the potential, do you think it can lead to another, although you earlier said that this is not the era of blocks, but do you still think that this trilateral dialogue can form into something like NATO in South Asia? Because West is kind of disengaged when it comes to Afghanistan at this point in time.
Yes, well, I think this forum has the potential of forming a kind of bloc. But as I said, you know, I personally feel in the 21st century, bloc politics is largely over. And now countries are working bilaterally, except in certain situations where there are processes like the China, Pakistan, Afghanistan forum, and they have a task before them, because I think in our region we need to have more focus on this. And I think that in the broader context, SCO is actually an organization that can deliver if we all work toward, and there you have Russia as well, and Afghanistan is also a sort of observer or semi-member yet, not yet a full member. So in that broader picture, I think it's important that this group should produce results.
Right, that remains an important factor. Dr. Salma, of course, Mr. Dar is on the visit. What are your expectations from this trilateral dialogues happening, and also from the ironclad friendship of Pakistan and China? What's your final words?
Hopefully better trilateral relations, an opening when it comes to Afghanistan, that's very critically needed. Although the visit, pre-visit in Afghanistan prior to this trilateral summit that took place in Kabul last week went very well, plus the fact that Afghanistan has given us so many assurances. But there are these micro irritants that both these countries need to work out, and I think China provides adequate forum for us to talk about, deliberate, and come to a
and these
singular
micro
solution.
irritants include security.
This includes security. Terrorism is by no means micro irritant. It's a major problem.
Major.
But there's the closing of the border that happens from time to time because of the terrorism issue.
Patrolling of the
so
border,
delinking, close patrolling, having a common thought when it comes to a common strategy or a plan when it comes to looking at cross-border movements, trafficking, smuggling, security situation, peoples-to-people movement. Then we have also had illegal Afghan nationals living here. They're going back and how they can settle. So both these countries have issues which are not at all so critical that they cannot be resolved with mutual consent. But I think at times you need a strong third partner to bring you to a common point, and China is wonderful in doing that, so that would be there. Plus how these three countries can come together and work together on common areas. Gwadar port at the moment is being used very actively for Afghan transit trade, so how can we make it more efficient, how can we make it more vibrant and performing? So there are several things that we need to connect on, because Pakistan has always said, we have always been open to dialogue. Number two, we have always said that the CPEC was never ever a vertical line, it was a horizontal grid as well, and we would offer any type of trade routes to all our neighbors, regardless of what they are, who they are, whether they like us or not. But the fact is that we never ever restricted these trade corridors for anyone. So trade is a great connecting factor, and it is also a factor that can help us overcome our security problems as well.
Right, and finally, Safi, this trilateral dialogue's growing scope, do you think we are going to be witnessing a new regional order as far as security of the region is concerned?
100%. I see that with what has happened recently, whereas China was already seen, as Ms. Salma Malik very rightly put, as a soft power, now it is being taken seriously as a military power, but also Pakistan as a regional security guarantor. And right after this, we have seen an outpouring of love from many other Muslim nations and many nations within the South Asian region, which include Maldives, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, all of them sick of Indian hegemony. And now suddenly we see for the first time after a very long time a lot of videos on social media where in the mosques of Saudi Arabia and in the mosques of UAE the sermons are being given about how there is one Muslim power with a nuclear weapon. And so what we have now witnessed for the first time is Pakistan being viewed as a security guarantor. China already stands as a security guarantor. As you have very rightly been alluding to the idea of a regional bloc. Whereas it might not be a fixed bloc like a NATO bloc. That is that might a treaty organization might not take place, but we do see a convergence of interests, and that convergence of interests is very important to rein in countries like Afghanistan, like Iran, who currently suffer from degradation of governance, but with just a little bit of economic strength, they might also
and
be
new ideas can be emerging from this dialogue.
And just last but not the least, one thing that it's a wish list. This is not something that I'm obviously expecting the foreign minister to accomplish. But if he is gone there, and it is a deep wish that if he does accomplish, we would want new definitions of how terrorism is viewed, and some modern equipment like the HQ-20, also GF-13, 35s. Those would be great. I think
defense cooperation.
We need some more defense equipment now, very clearly.
More focus on that. Thank you very much, Barrister Safiullah Ghori, for joining us in today's discussion. Thank you very much, Dr. Salma Malik, for joining us in today's program. Thank you, Mr. Ali Sarwar Naqvi, for joining us in today's discussion and for your valuable input. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.